The vast meeting chamber of the Galactic Empire's diplomatic vessel fell silent as the human ambassador walked in. The Imperial diplomats, with their blue-tinted skin and elaborate robes, watched with barely hidden disdain as the simple-looking human took his seat at the massive crystal table. Admiral Tom Wilson, Earth's chosen representative, wore a plain black uniform with minimal decorations. His weathered face and steady gaze contrasted sharply with the ornate appearance of the Imperial officials. He knew this meeting would likely be humanity's last attempt at peaceful resolution. "Your species will submit to Imperial rule," declared High Diplomat Ray, his translator converting his complex language into basic Earth English. "The Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. Resistance is pointless." Tom remained calm, though inside he felt a mix of frustration and pity for their ignorance. The Empire had discovered Earth just 3 months ago during their routine expansion into what they called primitive space sectors. Since then, their demands had grown increasingly aggressive. "The Empire assures basic rights to all subject races," continued Ray, his 6-fingered hands moving in practiced gestures. "Your technology level is barely spaceworthy. You need our guidance." Tom allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had only seen what humanity wanted them to see. Their scans had detected only the civilian ships and outer colonies. Earth's true military capabilities remained hidden, protected by technology that the Empire's sensors couldn't detect. "With respect," Tom replied, choosing his words carefully, "Earth and her colonies must decline your offer. We wish to maintain our independence." The Imperial diplomats exchanged glances. This wasn't the fearful submission they were used to from primitive species. "Perhaps you don't understand." Ray's voice turned cold. "This is not an offer. The Empire does not ask. We inform. You will submit, or we will take your worlds by force." Tom stood slowly, his chair scraping against the polished floor. "No, High Diplomat Ray. It is you who doesn't understand. We've tried to be diplomatic. We've tried to be reasonable. But if you force this conflict—" He paused, making eye contact with each Imperial diplomat. "We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves. We've perfected the art of war in ways you can't imagine." The Imperial diplomats laughed, a sound like tinkling crystal. "Your primitive projectile weapons and basic energy shields are nothing compared to Imperial might." One of them sneered. "Those are just our toys," Tom replied quietly. "What you've seen is what we wanted you to see. We've been preparing for aliens like you since we first looked up at the stars. We learned to hide our true strength, to appear weak when we are strong." Ray stood abruptly, his robes swirling. "You dare threaten the Empire? We have conquered 10,000 worlds. And you've never faced humans before." Tom's voice remained steady. "This is not a threat. It's a warning. Leave our space. Leave us in peace. Because if you force this war—" He walked toward the chamber's exit, then turned for one final message. "If you force this war, you will learn why every other spacefaring race gave our sector a wide berth. Why they warned others to stay away from the Death World species." As Tom reached the door, he heard Ray call out, "You have 3 planetary rotations to submit your surrender terms. After that, the Empire will demonstrate its power." Tom didn't turn around. 3 days then. Remember, we warned you. We beg you to walk away." The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. Back on his ship, Tom sent a simple message to Earth Command. "Diplomacy has failed. They don't believe our warnings. Operation Dark Shield is now active. All across Earth and her colonies, hidden military bases powered up. Massive ships, far more advanced than the civilian vessels the Empire had seen, emerged from their camouflage docks. Weapon systems that had been carefully concealed hummed to life. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, through fear and overwhelming force. They had never been seriously challenged, never faced defeat, but they had also never encountered a species that had spent its entire existence preparing for war, a species that had turned warfare into both an art and a science. As Tom's ship headed back to Earth, he felt a deep sadness for the lives that would soon be lost. The Empire had made their choice. Now they would learn why humans were considered the most dangerous species in the known galaxy. They had been warned. The Imperial fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system exactly 3 days later, just as they had threatened. 500 warships, their golden hulls gleaming in the starlight, emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. To the Empire, this was to be a simple show of force, a quick subjugation of yet another primitive world. Fleet Commander Bill watched from the bridge of Earth's hidden defense station as the Imperial ships approached Mars. His gray eyes narrowed as he studied their formation on the holographic display. The Empire's arrogance was clear in their approach. They weren't even in combat spacing. All defense grid stations maintained stealth protocols. Bill ordered quietly, "Let them come closer." The Imperial fleet moved past Mars' orbit, their sensors detecting nothing but civilian traffic and a few defensive satellites. Their scans showed exactly what humans wanted them to see, a seemingly helpless planet with basic space capabilities. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Jack from his console, "they're broadcasting their demand for surrender on all frequencies." Bill nodded. "Record it, but don't respond. Prepare to execute Operation Thunderclap." The Imperial fleet, confident in their overwhelming superiority, pushed deeper into the solar system. They had done this hundreds of times before. Show up with an overwhelming force, demonstrate their power by destroying a few military installations, and accept the inevitable surrender. But this time was different. This time, they were facing humanity. As the Imperial ships crossed the predetermined line, Bill gave the order they had all been waiting for: execute Thunderclap. All stations, weapons free. Suddenly, the space around the Imperial fleet came alive. Hundreds of defense platforms, previously invisible to Imperial sensors, decloaked simultaneously. Each platform was armed with weapons that the Empire had deemed theoretically impossible, hybrid systems that combined advanced energy weapons with primitive kinetic ammunition. The first wave caught the Imperial fleet completely by surprise. Railguns fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, while energy weapons targeted the specific frequencies of Imperial shields. The Empire had never encountered an enemy that used both technologies together. They had always considered kinetic weapons obsolete. "Multiple direct hits," Jack reported, his voice steady despite the excitement. "Their shields are calibrated for energy weapons only. The kinetic rounds are passing right through." The Imperial fleet scrambled to respond, but their tight formation, perfect for intimidation, now worked against them. As they tried to spread out, Earth's defense platforms launched their second wave. "Quantum torpedoes, launch," Bill commanded. Thousands of small projectiles shot toward the Imperial ships. The Empire's sensors classified them as primitive nuclear weapons, not worth raising additional shields for. It was their final mistake. As the torpedoes detonated, they created localized quantum fields that temporarily disabled the Imperial ship's artificial gravity and power systems. Chaos erupted among the Imperial fleet. Ships collided with each other as their gravity failed. Energy weapons powered down at crucial moments. Communication systems became unreliable. "Sir," Jack called out, detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. "Some Imperial ships are attempting to retreat." Bill allowed himself a small smile. "Launch the interceptors." From hidden bases on Mars and several asteroids, Earth's first wave of fighters emerged. These small, agile craft were piloted by both humans and AI systems, using tactics that the Empire had never encountered. They targeted the Imperial ship's hyperspace drives with precision strikes, stranding the would-be invaders in normal space. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, 300 Imperial ships had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining 200 had retreated in disarray, their neat formation forgotten, their confidence shattered. In the Imperial flagship, now fleeing at maximum speed, High Admiral Gray stared at the damage reports in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "They're supposed to be primitive. Their technology, their tactics." Back at the defense station, Bill sent his report to Earth Command. "First wave repelled. Minimal casualties on our side. Enemy fleet in retreat. They'll be back. But now, they know we're not defenseless." As cleanup crews began recovering disabled Imperial ships for study, Bill looked at the casualty reports. Despite their victory, he felt no joy. This was just the beginning. The Empire would return with a larger force, better prepared. But they would find that humanity had more surprises waiting. "Send word to all commands," he ordered. "Phase 2 begins now. We take the fight to them." The war had begun, and humanity had struck the first blow. The Empire was about to learn why starting a war with humans was their biggest mistake in 10,000 years. "Operation Thunderbolt is ready," announced Commander Alex, standing before Earth's Joint Military Council. The massive underground war room buzzed with activity as holographic displays showed the positions of both human and Imperial forces. The first battle had ended in humanity's favor, but everyone knew the Empire would return with a vengeance. They had never faced defeat in their 10,000 years of rule, and their pride would demand revenge. "Show them the new ships," ordered General Mike, his battle-scarred face illuminated by the blue glow of the holograms. Alex nodded and pressed a button. The display changed to show Earth's latest weapons of war. "The Empire thinks they know our capabilities. They're wrong. These are our real warships." The assembled leaders studied the images with approval. While the Empire built their ships to be beautiful and intimidating, humanity had created vessels purely for war. The new ships were dark, angular, and bristling with both energy and kinetic weapons. "The Empire has never faced an enemy that combines technologies like we do," Alex continued. "They think mixing primitive and advanced tech is beneath them. That's their weakness." In orbit above Earth, the first wave of these new ships prepared for launch. The crew of the flagship, Humanity's Vengeance, ran final checks on their systems. Captain Roberts stood on the bridge, watching his crew work with practiced efficiency. "All ships report ready, sir," his first officer announced. Robert nodded. "Begin Operation Thunderbolt. Jump when ready." Across Earth's solar system, 500 warships activated their jump drives simultaneously. Unlike the Empire's flashy golden ships, these vessels were covered in light-absorbing materials that made them nearly invisible to both sensors and the naked eye. They emerged from hyperspace deep in Imperial territory, their arrival masked by new stealth technology developed from studying the captured Imperial ships. Their target was the Empire's largest shipyard in this sector of space. "They're not detecting us," reported the sensor officer. "Their automated defenses are still offline." Robert allowed himself a grim smile. "Launch the new drones." From each human ship, dozens of small, automated craft deployed. These drones were based on centuries-old missile technology, but enhanced with advanced AI and modern weapons. The Empire, with their disdain for obsolete technology, had no defense against such hybrid weapons. The drones struck first, their primitive nuclear warheads enhanced with quantum fields. The explosions weren't just destructive, they created localized areas where Imperial technology simply stopped working. Shields failed, weapons powered down, and communication systems went dark. "Main Fleet, attack pattern Delta," Robert commanded. "Show them why you don't provoke humanity." The human ships struck from multiple directions, using tactics developed from thousands of years of warfare against themselves. While the Imperial ships relied on complex energy weapons, human vessels opened up with everything from railguns to plasma cannons to swarms of micro-missiles. The Imperial shipyard's defenses finally came online, but they were designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, not the mixture of technologies humanity employed. Kinetic rounds tore through their shields, while EMP bursts disabled their targeting systems. "Sir," called out the tactical officer, "they're launching their defense fleet." 100 Imperial ships rose from the shipyard, their golden hulls shining. They'd moved into their standard attack formation, expecting to face a conventional enemy. "Execute maneuver broken mirror," Robert ordered. The human fleet suddenly split into smaller groups, each using different tactics. Some charged straight in, absorbing hits on their reinforced armor. Others hung back, launching waves of drones and missiles. Still others used short-range jumps to appear in unexpected positions. The Imperial fleet, trained to fight as one unified force, couldn't adapt to fighting what seemed like multiple different enemies at once. Their formation broke apart as each ship tried to deal with different threats. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The shipyard was a floating wreck, and the Imperial defense fleet was destroyed or retreating. Human casualties were minimal. "Send the message," Robert commanded. On every Imperial communication channel, a simple message played. "You were warned. This is just the beginning. Surrender or watch your empire fall." As the human fleet jumped back to friendly space, Robert knew the real war was just starting. The Empire would respond with everything they had, but humanity had spent its entire history preparing for this kind of fight, and they were ready. The Empire was about to learn why starting a war with humans was their greatest mistake. In the Grand Hall of the Imperial Palace, High Commander Paul of the Empire stared at the holographic display with growing horror. His analysts had just finished translating and studying Earth's historical records, which they had dismissed as unimportant until now. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice barely a whisper. The hologram showed scenes from humanity's past wars. World wars, Cold War, countless regional conflicts, thousands of years of constant warfare and military innovation. While the Empire had enjoyed 10,000 years of relative peace, enforcing their will through overwhelming force, humans had been fighting and evolving. 6 major global conflicts in just 2 centuries, reported Intelligence Officer Mark, his blue skin pale with concern. Their entire history is an endless cycle of war and preparation for war. Paul watched as the display showed the rapid evolution of human weapons. From swords to guns to nuclear weapons to space combat, each generation of humanity had improved upon the last. While the Empire had stagnated, humans had never stopped advancing. "Their tactics make sense now," Paul said. "They don't fight like a unified force because they've spent millennia fighting themselves. Every human commander uses different strategies because they've learned from countless wars that flexibility wins battles." A new alert flashed across the display. Another Imperial fleet had just been ambushed by human forces. This time, the humans had used what the Empire considered mining ships, converted into weapons platforms. They had hidden in an asteroid field, using the rocks as cover, then launched devastating close-range attacks. "Impossible," muttered one of the other commanders. "They're using civilian ships as weapons." "No," Paul corrected him. "They're using everything as weapons. Look at their history. They've always adapted civilian technology for war. Ships, planes, even simple farming tools became weapons in their hands." The display shifted to show Admiral John's latest victory over Imperial forces. His fleet had used tactics that seemed chaotic to Imperial observers, but followed patterns similar to ancient human naval warfare. The Empire's rigid military doctrine couldn't adapt to such unpredictable strategies. "Their AI systems," Paul continued, "they're not just tools. They're based on their greatest military minds from history. Every human fleet learns from all their past wars simultaneously." Another alert. Human forces had just captured an Imperial supply base. Instead of destroying it, they had repurposed it, improving its design with their hybrid technology. They weren't just winning battles. They were learning, adapting, and growing stronger with each engagement. "Show the casualty reports," Paul ordered. The numbers appeared before him. In just 2 weeks of war, the Empire had lost more ships and bases than in the previous 1,000 years combined. Their golden fleets, designed to inspire awe and showcase Imperial power, were being torn apart by human vessels that prioritized function over form. "They warned us," Paul said quietly. Their ambassador tried to tell us what we were facing. We didn't listen. We saw their different technologies, their seemingly primitive weapons mixed with advanced systems, and we thought them inferior. A junior officer rushed into the hall, clutching a datapad. "High Commander, human forces have been detected approaching the Centauri sector. They're using our own captured ships against us, but they've modified them with their technology." Paul closed his eyes. The Empire had never faced an enemy that could not only match their technology but improve upon it. Humans took everything they encountered and found ways to make it more effective in war. "Send word to all commands," he ordered. "Change our doctrine. No more standard formations. No more predictable tactics. We must adapt or we will fall." But deep down, Hall knew it might be too late. The Empire had spent 10,000 years becoming set in its ways, while humanity had spent its entire existence learning to adapt and overcome. They had started this war expecting to swiftly defeat a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, a species that had turned warfare into both an art and a science. The Empire was facing an enemy that had spent its entire history preparing for this very type of conflict. As reports of more human victories flooded in, Paul realized a terrible truth. The Empire wasn't just facing defeat in battle. They were facing the end of their 10,000-year rule, and they had brought it upon themselves by ignoring humanity's warning. The captured Imperial battleship floated in Earth's most secure orbital facility. Inside, Professor David and his team worked tirelessly, surrounded by holographic displays showing the ship's complex systems. After 3 weeks of study, they had finally cracked one of the Empire's most closely guarded secrets. "Look at this," David said, pointing to a diagram. "Their shield technology isn't actually superior to ours. It's just different. They use a single powerful energy field. We use layered defenses." Chief Engineer Mary nodded, her hands moving through the holographic display. "And that's why our hybrid attacks work so well. Their shields can't adapt to multiple types of weapons at once." The research facility buzzed with activity as teams of scientists and engineers worked to understand and improve upon Imperial technology. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for alien contact, and now those preparations were paying off. "Send this to all fleet commands," David ordered. "Update targeting protocols to exploit these shield weaknesses." In another section of the facility, AI specialists loaded combat data from hundreds of battles into Earth's most advanced military computer systems. The AIs learned and adapted, creating new strategies faster than any organic mind could devise. "The Empire never developed true AI," explained Tech Lead John, watching the systems process the information. "They thought it was too unpredictable, but we embraced the chaos." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. A massive Imperial fleet had just appeared at the edge of the solar system, the largest one yet. But this time, Earth was more than ready. Admiral Kate stood on the bridge of Earth's newest warship, a hybrid vessel that combined the best of human and Imperial technology. "Show me their formation," she commanded. The tactical display revealed something new. The Imperial ships weren't in their usual rigid patterns. They were trying to adapt, to fight more like humans. "They're learning," Kate said with a grim smile. "But they're 10,000 years too late." Launched the new drones. From Earth's orbital platforms, thousands of small craft emerged. Each one carried a miniaturized version of the Empire's own shield technology, modified and improved by human engineers. But unlike Imperial shields, these could change frequency and strength on the fly. "Begin Operation Checkmate," Kate ordered. The human fleet moved into position, using tactics that would have seemed insane just weeks ago. Some ships deliberately lowered their shields, appearing vulnerable, only to reveal new weapon systems when Imperial vessels took the bait. "They're targeting our apparent weaknesses," reported the tactical officer. "Just as predicted." Kate nodded. The Empire was fighting better now, but they still fought in straight lines, in patterns. Humanity had spent millennia learning that the best way to win a war was to make your enemy's strength their weakness. "Deploy the phase shift missiles," she commanded. The new weapons, developed by studying Imperial technology, phased through the enemy's shields as if they weren't there. The Empire had never considered using their phase technology as a weapon. It violated their rigid military doctrine. "Multiple direct hits," announced the weapons officer. "Their flagship's shields are down." The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. Humanity had taken the Empire's technology and improved it in ways they had never imagined. Each captured ship, each recovered piece of technology, made Earth's forces stronger. Back in the research facility, David watched the battle data pour in. "Every engagement teaches us more," he said to his team. "Their technology isn't magic. It's just science they've stopped trying to improve." The Imperial fleet retreated, leaving behind dozens of disabled ships for Earth to capture and study. Their attempt to adapt human tactics had failed because they didn't understand the fundamental principle. Adaptation itself was the key, not just copying specific strategies. "Send word to command," Kate ordered as the last Imperial ships fled. "Phase 5 is complete. We're ready to take the fight to their core worlds." In just weeks, humanity had gone from defending Earth to preparing for a push into the heart of Imperial space. They had taken the Empire's technology and made it better. They had studied their enemies' patterns and broken them. The Empire had ruled through fear and stagnation. Humanity would win through innovation and adaptation. The turning point had arrived, and there was no going back. The grand halls of the Imperial Palace, once filled with confident nobles and military leaders, now echoed with panic and confusion. Imperial worlds were falling one after another to the human advance, not through simple conquest, but through something the Empire had never faced before: choice. Commander Steve of the human fleet, Freedom's Edge, stood on his bridge, watching as another Imperial world's defense fleet lowered their weapons. This was the 5th surrender this week. "They're hailing us again," reported his communications officer. The holographic display showed an Imperial governor, his ornate robes wrinkled from stress. "Is it true?" he asked. "That worlds that surrender willingly are allowed to keep their autonomy?" "Correct," Steve replied. "Earth doesn't want slaves or subjects. We want allies." This was humanity's masterstroke. While the Empire had ruled through fear and domination for 10,000 years, humans offered something revolutionary: independence with protection. Imperial worlds could keep their own governments, their own cultures, just without the Empire's oppressive control. In another sector, Admiral Jane led her fleet toward a major Imperial stronghold. But instead of finding resistance, she found civil war. Imperial ships fought each other, some defending the old order, others seeking to break free. "Multiple Imperial vessels requesting permission to join our fleet," her tactical officer announced. Jane nodded. This too was part of the plan. Humanity didn't just take Imperial technology and improve it. They shared their improvements with those who joined them. While the Empire hoarded knowledge, humans understood that sharing innovation made everyone stronger. "Show me the status of Operation Avalanche," Jane commanded. The tactical display revealed human fleets advancing across Imperial space. But they weren't just military forces. Each fleet carried diplomats, engineers, and teachers. Worlds that joined humanity weren't conquered. They were uplifted. Back on an Imperial core world, High Commander Paul faced a rebellion in his own ranks. "We can't beat them," shouted one of his officers. "They don't just take worlds. They turn our own people against us." "They offer choices," another officer added. "Freedom. Innovation. Things the Empire forgot about millennia ago." Paul knew they were right. The Empire had grown so used to absolute obedience that they didn't know how to handle willing allies. Humans had spent their history forming alliances, making deals, turning enemies into friends. On Earth, the War Council received another update. 3 more Imperial fleets had defected. Dozens of worlds were requesting membership in what was being called the New Alliance. The Empire wasn't just losing a war, it was losing its identity. Their whole system is breaking down, reported Intelligence Chief Ben. The Empire ruled through fear and technology. We showed their subjects they don't need to fear, and their technology isn't superior anymore. Human ships now patrolled trade routes once controlled by Imperial forces, but instead of demanding tribute, they offered protection and fair trade. Instead of suppressing local technology, they encouraged innovation and shared knowledge. Another Imperial battle group surrendered, announced a communications officer. Their commander says they've seen enough. They want to join us. This was the true victory. Humanity wasn't just winning battles. They were changing the very nature of galactic civilization. The rigid, hierarchical structure of the Empire was crumbling in the face of human adaptability and cooperation. Launch the next phase, ordered Fleet Admiral Mike from Earth Command. Show them what true allies can accomplish together. Across former Imperial space, joint human-alien crews worked together, combining their knowledge and skills. Ships that once bore Imperial colors now flew the flag of the new alliance, a symbol of unity rather than submission. The Empire had spent 10,000 years teaching the galaxy that strength came from dominance. In less than a year, humanity had proven that true strength came from cooperation and innovation. As more Imperial worlds and fleets defected each day, the outcome became clear. The Empire wasn't just facing military defeat, it was facing philosophical extinction. Their way of life, their entire system of belief, was being replaced by something they had never imagined: willing cooperation. The war wasn't ending with the destruction of the Empire. It was ending with its transformation. And in the end, that was a far more complete victory than any military conquest could have achieved. Humanity had not just won the war. They had changed the galaxy. The Imperial throne room, silent for the first time in 10,000 years, awaited the arrival of Earth's representatives. The remaining Imperial leaders stood nervously as the massive doors swung open. Admiral John walked in, leading a small delegation of humans and former Imperial commanders who had joined the new alliance. His simple black uniform stood in stark contrast to the ornate decorations of the throne room. "The Empire formally surrenders," announced the Imperial High Chancellor, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "We acknowledge our defeat." John shook his head. "This isn't about defeat, it's about change. The galaxy doesn't need an empire. It needs a coalition of equals." The terms were presented. The Empire would dissolve its central authority. Each world would gain independence, with the option to join the new alliance. Imperial technology and knowledge would be shared freely among all members. But how will order be maintained?" asked one Imperial noble. "Who will rule?" "Nobody rules," John explained. "We govern together. Every world gets a voice. Decisions are made through cooperation, not command." In orbit above the Imperial capital, ships from 100 different worlds gathered. Some bore the old Imperial markings, others displayed Earth's colors, and many showed new symbols of their own choosing. It was the first meeting of the Galactic Council. On the council station, Captain Lisa addressed the assembled representatives. "Look around you," she said. "Just months ago, we were enemies. Now we're building something new together." The changes were already visible. Former Imperial worlds were experiencing rapid advancement as human innovation combined with Imperial technology. Trade routes once controlled by force now flowed freely, protected by joint patrol fleets. "We've learned from each other," Lisa continued. "The Empire taught us about unified government across vast distances. We taught them about adaptation and innovation. Together, we're stronger than either of us were alone." Back on Earth, the War Council met for the last time. The screens showed the transformation spreading across the galaxy. Former Imperial citizens were learning to govern themselves, while human experts helped them adapt to their new freedom. "The final reports are in," announced General Mike. 90% of Imperial worlds have joined the alliance voluntarily. The remaining 10% have chosen independence but maintained peaceful relations. The Empire's fall had not led to chaos as its leaders had feared. Instead, a new order had emerged, not imposed from above, but built through cooperation and mutual respect. In the former imperial archives, human and alien scholars worked together, sharing knowledge that had been restricted for millennia. The Empire's technological stagnation was ending as human creativity merged with imperial precision. "We didn't just win a war," observed Professor David, watching mixed crews work on new ship designs. "We sparked a renaissance." The changes weren't just political or technological. Cultural exchanges flourished as barriers fell. Worlds that had been isolated under imperial rule now shared their art, music, and ideas freely. The galaxy was coming alive with new possibilities. Admiral John stood at the window of the council station, watching ships from dozens of worlds moving peacefully through space. A former imperial commander joined him. "We fought you because we thought you were primitive," the commander said. "We never understood that our superiority was our greatest weakness." John smiled. "The strongest metal isn't pure, it's an alloy. The strongest civilization isn't isolated. It's one that learns from everyone." As the first year of peace drew to a close, the galaxy had changed more than anyone could have predicted. The rigid hierarchy of the Empire had been replaced by a flexible alliance of free worlds. Innovation flourished as different cultures shared their knowledge. Humanity had done more than win a war. They had shown the galaxy a new way forward, not through conquest or domination, but through cooperation and respect for diversity. The ancient empire was gone, but something better had taken its place, a civilization that combined the best of all its members, that valued both tradition and innovation, that understood that true strength comes from working together. As ships from Earth departed for distant worlds, carrying teachers, engineers, and diplomats instead of soldiers, the message was clear: the age of empires was over. The age of alliance had begun.